Welcome back to the Cyber Show, brought to you by ThreatAdvice and Nextsoft. I'm Ben.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And today on the show, we have a cyber news roundup, followed by back to school segment. We have an interview for that. Then website of the week, and finally, Phish and Chips. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but stick around for the last segment.
So our first story of the week is on data breaches. According to IBM's Cost of Data Breach report, it is estimated that an average cost of data breach has reached a record high of $4.24 million. And this can all be attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic and the stay-at-home orders, which cause people to go and work remotely. Now, 60% of companies moved to the cloud, but many didn't heighten their security controls. Therefore, they left the door open for cyber criminals to infect their infrastructure. The most affected and expensive industry being healthcare at an average of $9.23 million. It's getting crazy out there.
Wow, absolutely. All right, we're going to switch gears. Ransomware. There's a new trend in ransomware, and this might sound surprising. Rebranding is the trend. Case in point, the infamous ransomware group DarkSide didn't go away after hacking Colonial Pipeline. They sort of mysteriously disappeared, but now researchers believe it just went quiet for a bit and then rebranded recently as Black Matter. Threat intelligence groups have discovered extremely similar programs, encryption algorithms, and decryptors, and even more between the two groups. And you know what they say, follow the money. Blockchain analysis shows that the money is all actually going to the same place. So this is part of a trend in which ransomware groups shut down and reemerge with new names, often after law enforcement and media scrutiny. So there you have it.
They're still out there. They're not gone.
No, definitely not. These are big businesses. Make no mistake about it. So rebranding shouldn't be as a surprise. It's things businesses do. Ransomware groups do too.
For our last and final story, it's really interesting, but somewhat scary. A group of researchers conducted that AI wrote better spear phishing emails than humans. A team from Singapore's government technology agency sent out spear phishing emails to their colleagues. At the same time, AI-generated phishing emails were sent out as well. Unfortunately, humans lost this battle, and in this experiment, the phishing emails generated by AI were a lot more effective than those created by humans.
Wow, that's really interesting as you think about AI being embraced by more technologies moving forward. That's our news for the week. Stay tuned. All right, I've got Steve Hines with me today. He's co-founder of ThreatAdvice, and no one tracks the cyberwire that I know of closer than Steve Hines. So Steve, thanks a ton for joining me. I wanted to ask you one question. Well, probably two questions, but we'll start with one, and that is, it's back to school time. We've seen over the past year or so a lot of cases of schools, universities, whatever, across the spectrum, getting hacked, getting hit by ransomware. And I just want to ask you why. What is it about schools and the education system that makes them sitting ducks for hackers and ransomware groups?
Good question, Ben. If you think about it, schools are really like big corporations. They have hundreds, if not thousands of employees, and they've got hundreds or thousands or 10,000s of students. And so they're huge organizations. But along with that comes tight budgets, and they don't have the time or resources typically to spend a lot of time and money on security, which number one is a problem. Number two, the general chaos that you see in schools. Think about schools starting back, school finishing, a lot of transitory employees, a lot of people coming and going. Then this year and last year, you throw in the remote learning piece, and we thought we were through with that, and now all of a sudden Delta's around. Not even thinking about all the mask arguments and those kind of things that are going on, which are total insanity. But going back to virtual learning, and so when you've got a lot of chaos and a lot of change, that is a playground for cyber criminals to take advantage of. Any organization in schools just happen to fall into that category and are getting hammered, no question.
So expect to see more of these attacks.
I think so. And I think this fall you'll see a lot more, maybe more than ever before. Schools are paying huge ransoms. One I saw in Texas last week paid a $453,000 ransom. And so if the money is that good and the target is that easy, then you will definitely continue to see these attacks.
So what can schools do? How can they combat this? What can they do to improve?
I think everybody within the school, superintendent board on down, has to get on board in realizing that it's an issue. Number one. Number two, most of the breaches that I see come through employees doing things, through phishing attacks and things like that. So they've got to educate their employees. They have to stay on top of who is coming and who's going, meaning they have a lot of employees that leave, a lot of new employees coming in. They've got to keep up with turning off access that needs to be turned off, and then also just give network access to the places that people and employees need to go, not give them over access. They have to look at the security of their school as an overall playbook. You've got to think about all the different things, not only all the devices you've got out there, but do they have endpoint protection? What's our firewall look like, et cetera. There's so many things to consider. Are we updating patches regularly? And then I would say a lot of them aren't prepared to respond to a breach, and so they have to have a breach response plan, and they have to practice it, because if you're down for a day and you can't teach is one thing. If you're down for 3 weeks and can't teach, that's another thing, not only with how that hurts the students, it hurts the parents and all of that. So it's a big challenge, but you have to dedicate the time and resources to making sure you've got a handle on the overall layered security.
Absolutely. Educate the educators. I like it.
Yes.
If it's one thing we don't need right now, it's schools getting hacked. So thanks a bunch, right, Steve. I appreciate you joining us and giving us your insight today.
Hey, glad to, Ben. Thank you.
So this is Website of the Week, and we have Mandy back. Mandy, what do you have for us?
All right, so the Website of the Week this week, I have a website called internetlivestats.com. Basically, if you go to this website, it gives you data from different social media platforms and just different things that are going on the internet, and just updates you on the amount of internet users in the world, total number of websites. You can scroll through and it shows you a bunch of different things: active Google users, active Twitter users, computers sold today. And the really cool thing is you can click on where it says today on a bunch of these different sections, and you can change it to this year, and you can see how many computers were sold this year, how many Skype calls are going on today, how many Skype calls are going on this year. Or there's even a section where you can click in 1 second on a few of them, and you can see how many of that is going on in 1 second each day. So that's super interesting to look at. Not super useful, I will say, but it's something that you can just kind of go to and see how many people are using the internet. And another thing that's really interesting from a security standpoint is you can see how many websites were hacked today and this year, which is truly an astronomical number. And it's kind of frightening that many websites are being hacked, and that number is constantly growing. And when you compare that to the massive amount of internet users in the world, it definitely makes you look at security differently, and really shows you how much of a concern that can be with how much is going on the internet constantly. So that's our Website of the Week, internetlivestats.com. Go check it out.
Chipotle. They've got great chips. Here's the problem. Recently, one of their email marketing accounts was hacked. mail.chipotle.com was the URL, the domain. And not only was this hacked, but cybercriminal groups used that account to send out malicious emails with malicious links, or websites trying to gather their login data so that they could then harvest that data on users. Hundreds of emails were sent out before the issue was remedied, but luckily it has now been fixed. This is just another strategy for hackers to use to break into a legitimate marketing platform to send emails to bypass messaging filters that otherwise would maybe block phishing emails. So be on the lookout for that kind of activity. But in the case of Chipotle, you can go back to enjoying the tasty chips. That's all I've got for today. See you next time.